Instructions for accessing subtitles in a language other than English are included on our board meetings webpage as well as in the description below. Instrucciones para acceder a los subtítulos en un idioma que no sea el inglés se incluyen en nuestra página web de reuniones de la Junta, así como en la descripción a continuación.
Hi, it is Tuesday, August 23rd at 6:46 p.m. and I am calling to order the Ross Valley School District Board of Trustees regular meeting. We are starting the meeting as normal with a closed session. There's no one here in the audience for a public comment regarding our closed session, so we'll go ahead into we have one item on our closed session tonight, which is conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation with significant exposure pursuant to Government Code 54956.9, subdivision D, 2, or 3. And this is a special education program dispute with two cases. Student number 9141922-765 and 292-7240-425. So we will now go into our closed session. Okay, welcome everyone. It is 7:08, Tuesday, August 23rd, and I am reconvening us back into open session for the Ross Valley School Board of Trustees regular meeting for Tuesday, August 23rd. And before we move into our other regular procedural items, we have a new item this evening, just as far as procedure. Marcy, if you want to.
Oh, thank you. So for those of you who may know that we have a Spanish translation this evening, and we have 14 headsets. So any of you who would like to have the Spanish translation when we get to our Deer Park Working Group update, and then you can get the headset. And Eric, if you can please repeat.
Lo que dijo la superintendente Trahan es que yo voy a proveer, soy Eric Sabo, director de servicios estudiantiles, entonces esta noche voy a proveer interpretación para los que hablan español. Entonces, si quieren aprovecharse de este servicio, hay auriculares aquí en la mesa, 14 en total. Entonces, yo voy a estar, mientras estén presentando aquí delante, yo voy a estar interpretando por este micrófono para que puedan oír y comprender lo que se dice. Y luego, durante el comentario público, yo también voy a proveer esa interpretación para los que hablan español, para que los directores aquí de la Junta Directiva puedan comprender.
All right, and Chris, you have them, so would you mind if anybody needs one of the...
Y el señor Carson, director de finanzas, tiene los auriculares para los que quieran.
Or we can let you out and you can go help. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. I'm just going to let those get handed out for a second. Sorry about the logistics. Hold on a second here. Oh, shoot. Yeah, no, I got it. Hold on a second. Make it work. Okay. Sorry about that. All right, we've got those handed out. We are here in the Wade Thomas multi-purpose room, and we have all but one of our trustees in attendance. So Ryan is not here yet. He will be, I believe, on his way. So just as far as attendance go. And then we have all of our staff here tonight for the staff update. So as we often do, before we move into the Pledge of Allegiance, I just want to acknowledge, and I don't have the script here with me, so let me see if I can remember it. This is our land acknowledgement that comes to us from the land acknowledgement for the Coast Miwok tribe, land acknowledgement that is been adopted by a number of public agencies. And so I want to acknowledge that since we are here in San Anselmo, that we are having this meeting on the unceded lands of the Coast Miwok, the unceded lands of the Coast Miwok, and we appreciate and acknowledge the ancestors from this land, both past, present, and emerging. Before we say our Pledge of Allegiance, one of the things that I was reflecting on tonight was how our public process does evolve and emerge, and how we strive to continue to improve our processes. So, for example, I think this is the first night that our district has done interpretation, Spanish interpretation, for as long as I've been attending board meetings, and possibly ever. So for me, that's an example of, and I know that sometimes it's frustrating and sometimes it feels slow, but it is a process that we do strive to continue to constantly improve. And along those lines, what that made me reflect on was we take an oath of office when we sit up here, and that oath of office is reflective of the Constitution of the United States and the state of California. And so what that made me reflect on was the preamble to the Constitution of the United States. And in that preamble, it says, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America." And what I was reflecting on was the addition of the word "more perfect union," and not just to establish a perfect union. And to me, that reflects the intention of our public processes to continue to try and strive and improve, knowing that we are always in process and always striving to do better, both up here, out there, and together as a community, in working together through our agreements and our disagreements, but that we are all collectively striving to create a more perfect union among ourselves. So with that in mind, I invite you to say the Pledge of Allegiance with me. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. Now we will move on to adopting the agenda and the timeline allocations. Are there any adjustments to our agenda for this evening or timeline? It's not a big one, but just checking in. Nope. All right, then we can go ahead and approve our agenda if we have a motion.
I move that we approve that we adopt the agenda and time allocations.
I second.
All right, motion and a second. Rachel?
Aye.
Marie?
Aye.
Wesley?
Aye.
Shelley? Aye. All right, we have an agenda and timelines, and we can move forward. Our first item beyond our procedural items is communication, which the first one is a report out from our closed session. We had one item on our closed session tonight with 2 special education program disputes, and the board did take action to approve the staff recommended resolution for those 2 special education program disputes. There were 2 cases. One was student number 914-1922765, and the second one was for student number 292-7240-425. So again, our action was to unanimously approve the staff recommendation for resolution of those disputes. This is now the moment where we have public comment regarding items that are not on our agenda. So if there's anyone here tonight, we do this every night. So anyone who's listening out there in the audience or here, if you do have items that you would like to talk to us about that are not on this agenda, you're welcome to come up and have 3 minutes at the podium. Please do. State your name and your affiliation, and if it's not on this agenda item, let us know what you think. You got 3 minutes. And sorry, Rachel, I'm looking back. Rachel's always been our timekeeper, so
this is short.
Okay.
My name's Peggy Dodge, and I'm a Ross Valley School District alumni parent. Been in the district since before I even had children. So I was trying to decide, how do you talk about the consent agenda? So I would like you to remove from the consent agenda the item regarding the hiring of the former superintendent as the coach for the current superintendent for discussion purposes. I'm not saying I totally oppose it, but I think that, I think that Marcy Trahan has been in this district longer than I've lived in San Anselmo and has really seen a lot. So I'm unsure about the why of the coaching and the fact that she worked so closely under him for so long. What does this particular individual have to offer as a coach that was not something that she had already or that she's encountered with him? So it's unclear on whether you have public speaking before you do your consent agenda or not. So it seemed like this was the place to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we do take public comment before, because it's an agendized item. So just that's fine. In the future, we will do public comment before the consent. And so that would be normally when you would bring something like that up. So, but thank you. All right, seeing no other public comment, we'll go ahead and move on to board announcements. And this is the moment in time where board members can tell each other about anything that they've been involved in outside of our committees or that we're on that might have relevance to our work as a board, any research or anything that's come up in our lives that seems like it would be a good thing to pass along to other board members. Rachel.
Surprise. I had the honor of attending, I think the first White Hill welcome back for 6th graders. It's happened probably since my son was there, like 3 or 4 years ago. And it was wonderful. It was lovely to see the teachers out and the students on campus. I got to meet both of our new principals there. But it was just great to see the community all together, and it felt kind of normal again, which was really nice. So I got to go. So thank you to those of you who are involved in that.
Nothing else with you all? And the only other thing that I would say is that we do have an election coming up in November, and so I know that people out in the community, it's that season for us all to start paying attention to it. So I just wanted to put that out there as part of our collective community work together, is to think about who sits up here. And now we will go ahead and move on to correspondence and communication with the board. I believe there's one item.
We have two.
Items.
Another one was put up today, and that one was regarding whether or not, or if we're going to have Spanish to English interpretation for public comments during the agenda item with the Deer Park Working Group.
And again, all of those correspondence with the board are put up on our board agenda documents, so we can look at them, but the public can as well, if you're interested. Any other? Nope. Okay, so we will now move on to our presentation and action item part of the meeting. And we have 3 items there. And the first one is an introduction of Mary-Clare.
Thank you. I'm so excited to have Mary-Clare Mullin join us this evening. And as you all will remember, we had a special meeting on August 8th in which you approved the hiring of Mary-Clare as a co-principal at Whitehill with John Baker. And they're both new to Whitehill this year. Well, actually, Mary-Clare is returning to Whitehill, but in a new role. So we're thrilled to have you back as co-principal. And she's here tonight to be introduced to the board and members of the public. And just thrilled to have Mary-Clare join us. She most recently was, after she left us, being a math teacher at Whitehill. She went to the Tamalpais Union High School District where she taught math, and then most recently has been an instructional coach working on their multi-tiered system of support. And for all of you know, that is one of our priorities in our district, is to refine and continue to refine our multi-tiered system of support. And so it's great to have an administrator join us who also has a background with helping us to continue our development. And it's a fantastic partnership, as we've seen already, between Mary-Clare and John. They do work very well together, and the staff, I think, is thrilled to have Mary-Clare back with us. Karen's nodding. So, and Karen and Mary-Clare used to be math on the same math department together in grade level. So just wanted to acknowledge Mary-Clare and also to welcome her this evening and have you all a chance before you get out to Whitehill to meet her. Do you have anything you want to say? You don't have to. Great, thank you. All right, we're looking forward to many more years.
Welcome back. We're thrilled to have you, and I know that we have at our last meeting and have had conversations about the co-principals, so really appreciate you stepping into this new role and look forward to kind of hearing more about how it's going. And I think it sounds like it's going to be a fantastic duo. So thank you so much. All right. Thank you.
I told you to be quick.
A round of applause, please. We're very excited. Thank you so much. All right.
And you don't have to stay. You're more than welcome to. I know you have a young one at home, so whenever, yeah.
All right. We will go ahead and move on to an update from the Deer Park Working Group. Tonight we will do another update. We'll focus on kind of what's happened since we were last here in updates. And this tonight also has an action item for an approval for a sale appraisal. But Marcy, if you want to go ahead and start off with the presentation.
Sure.
Oh, sorry. Let me just go back in case anybody hasn't been here in terms of how this runs, how this is going to go. So we'll do a presentation. After that presentation, if there are any clarification questions from the board, I will facilitate any clarifications that the board might have. And those are just basic clarifications. They're not comments or statements or anything like that. Then we'll go out to the public for public comment about the presentation and any feedback and comments that you'd like to give to us. And then we'll bring it back to the board for further discussion. And then tonight we do have a vote. So that's the way that the back and forth is going to go, just so everybody knows how that'll run. All right,
thank you. And we started with the slide presentation at our August 2nd board meeting. Eric, I want to just say too, if I'm talking too fast or any of us are, please don't hesitate to raise your hand and let us know. All right. So we have a slide presentation. We did keep the first 6 slides in the presentation. And the reason is that for any folks who tonight may be the first evening at which they are joining us around one of the updates, we wanted to leave a couple of the slides in just so that they could catch up. This slide deck is also on our board docs, which is where our agenda is housed. And so if anybody wanted to go back and look at those agenda items, with this presentation. So the first 6 slides are continuing. We have Eric and Heidi from the Children's Center up here with us this evening. Oh, I did not call our attorneys. Hang on, I need to call the attorneys.
Hold on one second. We normally do this where we both the Children's Center and the district have been working together in our working group And while she's calling, I'll just let you know. And the members of that working group are Heidi and Eric from the Children's Center, and one of the board members kind of rotates. And then myself and Marcy and Chris with the district. And then we each also have our legal counsels who work together, who've been working together really well and working with us together as well. So during board meetings, we get them on the phone. Sometimes we will ask them specific questions, but it's also so that they can hear your comments and they can hear the presentation, because that's really helpful for us when we go back into our working groups, for them to have gotten the context on what we do in these public meetings as well. So we'll get them on the phone. And this would be a good time if anybody wants to make public comment but hasn't filled out one of these cards, to go ahead and grab one in the back and then hand it up to the front.
Just in case.
Ready? Ready. All right. Okay. All righty. And so, as I was mentioning, the first 6 slides are the same as we had at our last presentation. And so what we're really working on, and you probably said this, but I was paying attention to the phone and I may be repeating it, is working collaboratively with the Fairfax San Anselmo Children's Center. There are 3 preferred pathways, there are 3 pathways. One is preferred, which is a way to do a direct sale of the Deer Park property to the Children's Center. And though as we are traveling down that preferred pathway, we are still looking at also the other pathways in the event that we run into any bumps in the road. We want to be sure that we have the options available as we go through. And so this evening we will start on slide 7, which is we're making progress together. And this slide was up at the last meeting, but it's been revised because we've had a couple of meetings and more information to put up since our August 2nd meeting.
So by way of updating trustees and everyone, the orange meetings up here, as I mentioned in the past, our working group is meeting once a week. So we've had 3 working group meetings, and those meetings have been focusing on looking at the Ed Code 17458 exemption to the Surplus Lands Act, and what that would look like in terms of shifting the Surplus Lands Act, traditional Surplus Lands Act process. Surplus Lands Act is what we have to follow when we are looking at selling a property. So we're looking at things like what that process looks like, what the documentation that the board has requested in order to make the decisions that will happen along that process, looking at fair market value, what kind of points of consensus that we have, and the agreements that our legal counsels have come to in terms of that process includes things like which different entities the district needs to offer the property to, in which order, and those kinds of things. So we've been working with our legal counsel to understand what all those steps are and what we can agree on. So that's basically been what we've been working on in the Deer Park Working Group. We did have a meeting with Senator McGuire collectively, Senator McGuire, to just let him know what we were working on and to check in with him around some of the statewide affordable housing. And so we're still working with that on him, but it was a great meeting and it was really wonderful to be able to at least check in with him on what we're doing so he has a heads up. A wonderful supportive senator, the state senator. And then here we are at our board meeting. So we will continue to meet regularly as a working group and continue to do updates. So the next slide is some of the areas of agreement that we have already come to. So Chris, if you want to go through some of those.
Yes, actually I have this slide. And as we've been talking, we've been working collaboratively with the Fairfax San Anselmo Children's Center and with our legal counsels on looking at the different laws and avenues when looking at those specific 3 pathways. And as we were looking at them, some of the things that initially were differences in how we were looking at them have now become agreements, and those we've shown up here this evening. And first and foremost is Education Code 17458, and that is an exception to the Surplus Land Act process, and that has to do specifically with a sale to a state contracted child care development center. And so there is a specific exemption to that Surplus Lands Act. And it still does provide for or require that we have a 7-Eleven process. We just want to make sure that that is something that we understand and has been agreed upon. And then as we were looking at that, there are requirements in terms of the sale of school facilities and parks and playgrounds, and that has to do with what's called the Naylor Act. And when you're going through the sale under Education Code 17458, the Naylor Act still does apply. And so with that, we would have to start the process with other entities, government entities, and those specifically are listed up here, the city where the land is situated, Parks and Recreation, Regional Park Authority, and the county. And so some of the things that we've been doing as a collaborative group as well is starting out and working with those or speaking to those other entities as we go through that process. We want to get out in front of it and start talking to them and let them know that we're going down this pathway. So that is something that we've come to an agreement on as well in terms of the last board meeting.
And if you look back on the slide right before that, you'll see the meetings that we've had. So we have met with the town, with some representatives from the town of Fairfax. We've met with some representatives from the county. Parks and Rec, we're still figuring out who exactly to touch base with that, since there's not a formal Parks and Rec body, at least in Fairfax, where it's located. And then the Regional Park Authority is also connected with the county. So we're going to have another follow-up meeting with county staff soon. So the next one is just this should again look familiar, but we wanted to kind of keep this as our kind of where are we on the process list. This was generated at our last meeting when the board gave input on what kinds of documents and pieces of information that you all are going to want to have before you when we need to be making some decisions. So just to recap where we are, and we use this list at our working group. We kind of have it on our standing agenda every time, and we've been going through and saying, okay, what's our progress to date on these steps and this information. Fire life and safety reports, it was summer, so we're still waiting. We're still waiting for some of those reports to come in. And as we mentioned before, we're kind of in this overlap of discovery phase and moving forward with a preferred alternative phase. So we're still gathering information while we're starting to move forward, figuring out some solutions. Surplus Lands Act process, regulations and exemptions. I think you heard about some of those tonight. When we get closer, our lawyers are working on a presentation for the board on that, so that'll have a lot more specificity to it, especially around the 7-Eleven advisory committee process. Just so you all board members and public know, when we say 7-Eleven, it's a committee, it's a public committee for whenever a public entity is looking at selling a property, we have to go through the Surplus Lands Act, which says you have to form a 7-Eleven advisory committee of community members, and it's pretty prescribed and pretty set how that committee has to go. You have to have kind of representation. And the reason it's called 7-Eleven is because you have to have between 7 and 11 committee members. So that's where that term comes from. And so if you hear us talking about the 7-Eleven process in the future, that's what we're talking about. So our lawyers are working on a presentation on that for us that will come in the future. As I mentioned, we've been talking about sale price and appraisals and facility needs assessments, and we're moving forward on that. What we'll bring back to the board after we hear public comment is to move forward on a sale appraisal for the property and an allocation of funds to go ahead and actually have that appraisal done. So we'll have that information for us. Yeah, so a lot of it has to do with time, process, costs, those kinds of things, and as well as like setting forward a timeline for decisions along all these pathways. We are also pulling out from our archives, literally boxes in the archives for history of Deer Park, going back as far as we can to see what we can learn from that process. So we will be bringing those forward as well as pieces of information for you all. All right. Marcy, I think this is the last.
Yep. And this next slide, it just shows all of the board meetings that we've had to date since March 2022. And they're linked, so that's all in the slide deck as well as on the agenda item itself. So the board meeting agenda item is linked. That's the first link there. And then on the right is the recording. And so I've listed there also the time at which this agenda item is within the recording. So hopefully, and then when you go on to the meeting recordings, if you haven't done so yet, you can see where each of the agendized items, it has the listing of the minute at which it begins there. So we'll keep adding to this as we continue to have meetings, and I'll keep it also on the board agenda, but we'll keep it on the slide deck as well.
So right now it's on the slide deck and it's in board docs. And at some point, maybe we will have a place on the website for people. Is this also on the website itself, or do people have to go into the board docs?
People would need to go into board docs.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, related to that. But you can find the meeting information on the district website under Board of Trustees meetings, and then drop down to all of the meetings that you want to look at. And each of them has the recording there listed there to click as a link. All right, so that's the end of our slide deck this evening. And so now I think we'll go for questions.
So these are clarification questions. If there's any acronym or reference that we made that board members need clarification on. And if you come up with it later, you can come back to that. But if there isn't any clarification, great. All right, so we will go out for public comment now to hear from you all before we bring it back for discussion. Looks like we have about 11. Was there any last minute ones that came up? Okay, so it looks like we have about 11 or so. So we'll do 3 minutes at the podium, and I'll do my usual shuffle here. I mean, 3 minutes, yeah. 3 minute public comment each. Shuffle them up.
Shelley, I can keep the time again, but I'll have my alarm go off at 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, we'll continue to do at 2.5 minutes. You'll hold it up to the microphone so everybody can hear. Well, at 2.5 minutes, you'll hear the alarm go off, and that means you got 30 seconds to go ahead and wrap up your comment. All right, I'm just going to read 5 at a time, and then we'll go with the next 5. So the first 5 is Emily Tanario. Oh, 2 of them for Emily, so I'm assuming there's only one Emily. Sharon Sagar, Kayla Alvarado, Victor Alvarado, and Florencia Parada. So if you want to come and line up here, that's Emily, Sharon, Kayla, Victor, and Florencia. And again, when you're up here at the podium, go ahead and give us your name, and if you want to say how you are connected to us. If you would like to make your comment in Spanish, Eric, I don't know if you want to explain how this is going to run.
Si quiere hablar en español, entonces yo voy a proveer interpretación a la junta directiva en inglés. Entonces, esto quiere decir que cada, 20 segundos, algo así, porque con ya 3 minutos, esto va a ser muy difícil. interpretar en un bloque. Entonces, cada 20 segundos, más o menos, si toman una pausa, yo puedo darles la interpretación a lo que está compartiendo. Entonces, y para los comentarios en inglés, yo voy a seguir con el auricular en mi micrófono pequeño para los que tengan.
So I know a number of us up here speak Spanish, but so basically what he's going to do is ask the person, we'll give you double time because there is interpretation, so you'll have an extended amount of time, and just pause. I think it was in like every 30 seconds or so that we can hear in English what's being said in Spanish. And I know my Spanish is okay, but it definitely will be helpful to have this in English as well. So thank you. Go ahead.
Is it okay if I do it in English?
Yes, it's totally, you don't have to do it in Spanish.
Okay.
It's just an option if you
And
like.
if somebody's going to do it in Spanish, let me know so I can set the timer differently. Thanks.
Okay, so I'll begin. Hello, my name is Emily Tenorio, and I'm here today to speak on behalf of myself and many others. I'm a current 11th grade student at Archie Williams High School who attended White Hill Middle School and Hidden Valley Elementary, as well as a former child of the Children's Center. My goal here today is to share a little perspective and experience as someone who did go and benefited a lot from the services the Children's Center has provided my family and I with. From what I remember from the time before attending the Children's Center, at school, I was always left out and felt pretty isolated from everyone else. I felt like I could never really relate to anyone else there. At home, life was as peaceful as it could get, with two stressing parents struggling to make ends meet for their 3 children. At the time, my dad was the only one working full-time because my mom was the one who took responsibility over my brother, sister, and I. A task that was not easy, and that one that put even more financial strain on my family because of their limited available working hours. I say this with as much honesty as possible. The enrollment of my siblings and I into the Children's Center changed our lives forever. I remember some of the highlights from my elementary school experience wasn't actually going to school, but it was after getting picked up in the big white van and being taken to the Children's Center. Was a feeling that was indescribable. It was that of pure happiness for 7-year-old me. It was at the Children's Center where I would meet some of the greatest people I know today, people that I connected with, and people that I don't just consider my friends, but my family. I met dependable teachers and adults, and that although it's true I don't personally receive care from the Children's Center any longer, I know I can still depend on them. And having that strong sense of support system, even years after I graduated the Children's Center, is something that is truly special and something I'm very grateful for. Like I've said, I've no longer attend the Children's Center. Neither do any of my siblings. But why is this something that is so important to me? And why do I feel it necessary to stand in front of you all today sharing my story? That's because I put myself in the shoes of children now. Children who may be just like I was, struggling to make friends at school that they relate to. I think of the parents who were just like mine, working and struggling so hard to be able to provide their children with nothing but short of the best. Education, resources, and more. Families who need the extra support system that mine was luckily given through the Children's Center. The Children's Center has helped so many people, families in the community, and I'm really grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Sharon Sager. I'm a community member. I was a Ross Valley School Board trustee for 15 years, and I developed quite an interest in preserving the school properties for our community during that time, and that's why I continue to come and speak to the board on this issue. It's really important for me to say that I think this whole process has been very flawed from the beginning. And the first thing that this board should have done was had a presentation from someone very qualified in school surplus sales come and do a presentation for you to educate you about the process. So this is kind of backwards how it's happening so that you would understand all of the steps that need to take place. And the fact that some of that education is happening offline in this other committee when you're not all there hearing the same information together, to me seems wrong. Also, the fact that it's so hard to get a presentation together on something like this, when you can get on the internet and you see presentations from all kinds of attorneys, that it takes, this has been going on since March publicly. that you haven't been able to get your attorney to do a simple presentation about a surplus property sale is concerning to me as a community member. I would like to reiterate my desire is on behalf of this community to do all that you can as a board to preserve this property long-term on behalf of the community. We will not be able to go out and buy property again in this community very easily. And so I do support the Fairfax San Samuel Children's Center and staying there. I do support a sale to them. But again, I really encourage you to think about having a condition on that sale that if they ever close or leave that property, that you have first rights to get it back. My other concern is the type of property appraisal that you're going out for. I don't think it's realistic to just get an appraisal for general property, so I'd like to hear more about what kind of an appraisal you're going out about, because as part of the Naylor Act, I do believe that you have to take into consideration the price you paid for the property, and then you can add incremental amounts to that price. I don't think you can go out and just sell the property for whatever property sells for in our community. But again, on behalf of our community and long-term preservation of the property, I hope that you'll really think about writing something into anything that you do to preserve this property for the future. We have no idea what our community will need for schools in the future. So don't take away that ability to get this property back if you need it. And thank you so much for having translation tonight.
Hi, my name is Victor. I started my 4th grade year.
It's okay. It's okay. Take your time. And if you want to come back up afterwards, you're welcome to do that as well. We can let you come back. So whatever you like to do, you can come back. It's okay if you want to come back afterwards.
My 4th grade year, last Wednesday, I just wanted to say how important the center is to me. Every day, my mom or aunt takes me to RVC, but at the end of the day, they are at work. So the center picks me up from school, period. At the center, the teachers take care of me and help me with my homework. After I do my homework, I go outside to play. The center is my second home, and losing it would be heartbreaking. Thank you. Hi, my name is Kayla. Before I start, a moment of silence for River. I am very sad because every day I wake up to the possibility that the center could be closed. I have a lot of friends and family that go there. that won't have anywhere to go. One day when I grow up, I want to work at the center. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Florencia Parada. Sorry, just that was very hard to.
Take your time. Take your time.
For the kids, for the children, our love, our heart. Well, that's why we're here for you guys, and thank you for being here. I wanted to acknowledge first the interpretation services that we finally are receiving. Thank you for that. It's a step to building awareness of the language barriers and the impact that the lack of these services have caused to the children center families and our children. They are your families in the district too, and it is an inclusive, responsible action that you have taken today. So thank you for that. But we have been asking for this at every public meeting since the first public comments on June 23rd in response to the recommendation for eviction that your attorney, Mr. Tao, made back in May 2022. So my question to you is, how is that the Ross Valley School District does not have the resources needed to provide interpretation? How is that possible? Can you find a way to communicate with us directly and answer our questions as an effort to build trust in the community? Can you please tell us how or why it took so long to provide this basic need? Can the district develop a plan that supports language access to the district families, regardless of where we come from, the skin color that we proudly have, our voice that we proudly have? We haven't found our voice, our voices here, and you're hearing us right now. At the last Ross Valley School District meeting, the board president mentioned the importance to honor women's equality, women's rights and activism. You also talk about the values of equal access to higher education and the importance of continuing the work together towards democracy, equality, fairness, and justice. And with all my respect, can your team do us the honor to reflect on this, each of you? Could you please think about the shock and disruption people face when they believe the center could be suddenly closed or abruptly moved to another area? All of this is based on the information your attorney provided with your authorization and you provided in your board meetings. The unfortunate fact is that we had to repeat ourselves again and again. And we had to say that even if we had interpretation, the Marine Independent Journal News, our community received in June 5th, was really, really affecting, extremely stressful and shocking for the entire community. This information is under your supervision. The confusion came from you from the first moment. And it's still affecting the mental health of our families today, believe it or not. So how does that show democracy, equality, fairness, and justice when there were no clear efforts to work in collaboration and in transparency with the Fairfax San Anselmo Children's Center? We also wanted to move, and I want to say this. How many of your children come to these meetings? How many of your children are forced to fight for their rights and their parents' rights? How many of your children really need to come sometimes twice a month, worry that they are losing one of their most important places in their lives, most important basic needs? How many of your children had to translate their parents' fears, their parents' anxiety of the displacement? And I'm not sure if you're really aware that people believe that your news, that the news that they might lose their children's center, their homes, their jobs, their children's safe place to be is real. You gotta acknowledge that.
Thank you.
You gotta acknowledge that. Can you reflect on that?
Thank you.
If that happens to your children, how you guys will feel about that.
Thank
Is
you.
that inclusiveness?
Thank you.
Please do us the honor and reflect on that.
Thank you. The next 5 public comment will be Lisa Kanan, Ivy, Isela, Peggy Dodge. Oh, we'll just do 6. We've got 6 more. Melissa Campos, Huavalanza, and Yolanda Barahona. So Lisa, Ivy, Isela, Peggy, Melissa, and Yolanda.
I'm Lisa Kanan. It seems that you are not prioritizing a straight transfer of land. Marcy, even when you read the slide, you dropped the word transfer. And the next slide only had the word sale. There was no mention of transfer. Otherwise, you would have hired a consultant with expertise to support this values-based decision-making. This is a community property owned by the public and provided to the district for educational purposes. A little history of the property, which was not hard to find. A few years after World War II, the Fairfax School District filed a condemnation action to take a portion of the Deer Park property from the Water District for a school for a growing population. Despite opposition of conservation groups, the court approved the school district's action. In April 1950, the Fairfax School District acquired 6 acres of property for what is now Deer Park School. 40-ish years ago, RVSD essentially abandoned the educational purpose of this property, and by luck and the sheer force of Stan and Ethel's vision and commitment, stumbled back into a remarkable public benefit, preserving the acquired land's educational purpose, but without much investment in maintaining the property as landlords. In order to transfer, not sell, public property to a non-public entity, that entity must have public purpose within the jurisdiction of the school district. There is huge federal and state investment in childcare as basic infrastructure right now. Just like you, the center receives public funding. It's hard to imagine a more public benefit or purpose in our jurisdiction. Our general fund tax dollars should be used for expertise that helps us remove obstacles impeding a proven educational equity partner and to enable them to thrive. You are not the first district or public entity to go through this process. There is no excuse for the kind of uncertainty and confusion you are encountering, except for the fact that you have inadequate representation and direction, or there are some other motives you have not stated. 25 years ago, I was on a board that moved a nonprofit childcare center from a rented commercial space to Hamilton on property sold by Novato to the center for $1. There's a fully articulated roadmap for this process. It's not rocket science. Some of you claim fiduciary responsibility as if fair market value was a value that provided some kind of principled roadmap to a decision. The valuation pursuit is a red herring. How do you value a property that would be tied up for decades in litigation should someone try to develop it for private use? How do you devalue in the very significant risk of fire and danger and vandalism to its neighbors when this property sits uninhabited and uncared for? How do you value destroying an educational safety net for future generations of some of our community's most vulnerable residents? A fair market evaluation was used to substantiate abandoning the perfectly adequate district office, claiming it would generate $100,000 a year to justify $5.5 million in building a new district office. How did the valuation services work there? The building was empty months before the pandemic. What kind of appraiser did you use then? Let's move on with expert opinion to get this done well, efficiently, diligently, and with community values at the center. Ones that reflect what this property was obtained for. This property belongs to education. You received it for that purpose. It's grotesque and unprincipled to fail to pass it on to preserve that benefit and instead to preoccupy and distract yourselves with some imagined profit motive merits of selling somebody else's educational birthright.
Thank you.
Hello, RVSD board. My name is Ivy Levy. I'm a licensed psychotherapist seeing children and adults in Marin County. I live in Fairfax, and I have a child who goes to school in this district. I want to echo Sharon Sagar's thoughtful words around the ability of the district to buy back the property, et cetera. I thought what she contributed was very helpful, so I really hope the district takes that to heart. And I'm also really grateful for Victor and his sister's contributions tonight. I just want to take a moment to think about the mental health of the families that are going through this very long, drawn-out process for trying to essentially save their school at its site. The shadow of instability with a possible loss of the FSACC lease is extremely stressful. Any parent in this situation, such as my mother was long ago, may start to worry if they can afford rent, if their childcare costs increase, if they need to leave the area, in which case they lose probably their community, their job, and their school. These are huge losses that are very hard to come back from. These stresses create a near constant state of high stress, high cortisol, which have a cascade effect to physical and mental health issues, which can last for years. I ask you to continue to dig within yourself and deepen your commitment to this vital community in Marin County. We need this community as well as the services that this center provides. I'm very concerned that over 200 people were present at the June 15th meeting and that we still have not made very much progress. I do appreciate the efforts that are being made. Hundreds of letters have been written. I'm also concerned about the ongoing erosion of trust in the RVSD board. Please show real inclusive leadership and take more initiative on behalf of this critical service for children and families. Thank you.
Hola, mi nombre es Isela y yo he estado aquí desde la primera reunión. Yo recuerdo que la presidenta dijo de que esto no era un...
Hello, my name's Cisela. I've been here for every meeting since the beginning.
Yo me recuerdo que la presidenta dijo que esto no era un taller, no era un workshop, pero en la última reunión una persona dijo de que nosotros no sabíamos nada de las leyes y de los límites.
I remember the board president saying that this wasn't a workshop, but that people were sharing that they didn't understand all the laws that we were referencing.
Y que solo venimos y los juzgamos, pero yo quisiera saber, siempre en las reuniones hay muchas preguntas.
There's so many questions. I'm sharing there's so many questions typically in these meetings.
Y muchas de esas, pues, no sé si se contestan. Yo no
Doesn't feel
entiendo
like they're
muchas
being
cosas.
answered all the time.
No sé si las presentaciones es lo que responde esas preguntas.
In presentations to come, will those questions be answered?
So, no sé de quién es el trabajo, si es de ustedes o si es de
Whose job
Eric
is
y
it to
Heidi.
answer the questions? Is it our job? Is it somebody else's?
Yo recuerdo que hace un par de años un presidente dijo que quería construir un muro y quería separarnos.
A few years ago, a president said he wanted to build a wall to separate us.
Y ahora siento de que hay muchas cosas que nos están dividiendo en un condado como Marin y se siente muy feo.
Many things feel like they're starting to or continuing to divide us in Marin, and that's a very ugly feeling.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Hi. I'm here in support of the Children's Center. My name is Melissa Campos Oyanca, and I'm a former student of Brookside Elementary and a current student at Archie Williams High School. And I was also part of the Children's Center. The Children's Center was a place where I lived out my childhood, and it taught me values of community and family, And it also provided me and my family with the love and support that we needed throughout the years I was there. The Children's Center personally helped me become a better student, friend, daughter, and person in general. And I'm grateful to the Children's Center because it helped me academically throughout elementary school, since my parents couldn't. And teachers and staff there helped me and guided my educational journey into middle school. And I'm very grateful for that. And I'm also thankful to the Children's Center for helping me grow up and become the woman and the person I am today. Thank you.
Hi, I'm still Peggy Dodge. My children had the privilege of being at Fairfax San Anselmo Children's Center from 3 months old on, and also were Ross Valley School District students. They had the unique experience in Marin County of growing up in a place where the friends and the families that they were meeting were from all around. It was not, as is very typical in Marin County, a homogeneous, I almost said the wrong homo word there, homogeneous society, but a very heterogeneous one, and that has contributed to who they are as the young adults that I'm proud of. I wanted to share a story. I bumped into a community member at Safeway last week, someone I hadn't seen in a long time, hasn't been coming to these meetings, but has been talking with community members and reading things in the IJ, and knew that I care about ECE, and she said, "Oh, you must be so happy that they've solved it." And I sort of had to honestly say, well, I don't think it's solved, but I think it's moving in the right direction. And she said, no. They're going to stay. Fairfax San Anselmo gets to stay. And her enthusiasm, I think, is indicative of the feelings in this community for Fairfax San Anselmo Children's Center. She had it wrong, but the enthusiasm was there. My own enthusiasm about the process laid out in the July meeting is waning a little because I perceive a lack of progress. I'm especially disappointed that my understanding is one of the latest concerns is once again about liability and not about education. This concern that you could not transfer the property because you might get sued if it was later determined that Fairfax doesn't serve a public purpose. Public purpose means providing facilities or services for the benefit of the public in connection with, but not limited to, public health, safety, or welfare. First of all, I think public health, safety, and welfare are supported by the work of Fairfax San Anselmo, as well as education. If a program that is funded by the state of California through the Department of Education by contracts to provide California state preschool programs and is contracted to provide subsidized childcare for infants through school-age children with a contract with Department of Social Services is not an agency with a public purpose, what would be? And again, I just want to urge you to think of yourselves as a local board of education. And if you do that and you think deeply about the meaning of education, you know that schooling, as Ross Valley School District has it, is only one piece of education. I did my master's thesis on this topic around education, childcare, and school-age childcare. And we're in the same park. It says on your slides that we are all in the education field. So please let the liability stuff go and think about yourselves as a board of education. Thank you.
Thank you.
¿Qué tal es? Buenas tardes a todos, a todas. Mi nombre es Yolanda Barahona.
Bueno, good evening, everybody. Y de nuevo, su nombre es
Yolanda Barahona.
Yolanda. Ok, muy bien. Yolanda, excelente. Yolanda, muy bien.
Yo también estoy aquí desde la primera vez, desde la primera
I've been here
junta.
since the first meeting.
Y sigo viniendo porque me importa mucho la educación de nuestros niños.
And I keep coming because of how important the education of our children is to me.
No solamente porque aquí vino mi hija cuando era pequeña,
Not only because my child went there when she was young,
y ahora mi nieto,
and now my grandson,
sino por todos los niños y niñas que merecen una educación de calidad.
but also for all the children that deserve the quality education that the center gives.
Esta es, ya no sé cuál número de reunión en la que estamos,
I don't know how many meetings it's been,
pero yo tampoco siento que las cosas se buscan. No siento que haya voluntad de que se quiera buscar una solución favorable para la educación de nuestros niños.
I don't feel there's the will to seek a solution for the children's education on the board's behalf.
Hay estudios, y esto lo dije antes en una reunión, que prueban que una persona cuando recibe educación temprana es más probable que llegue a la universidad y que salga profesional de la universidad.
I cite studies that show that when children receive early education, it's much more probable they'll go on to higher education and success.
Y yo me pregunto, ¿por qué el distrito escolar de Rose Valley está poniendo a prueba o en riesgo que todos estos niños y niñas de nuestra comunidad no puedan tener esa oportunidad?
I'm just asking myself, why is it that Ross Valley schools would risk those children not receiving that benefit with the center's closure?
Nuestra comunidad, la mayoría, no podemos pagar otro cuidado.
Members of my community aren't able to pay for any other kind of service.
Eso quiere decir que nosotros vamos a tener, estoy hablando de cuidado de calidad, que es lo que provee el Children's Center de Fairfax en San Anselmo.
And not just any care, but quality care, which is what the center provides.
Y entonces, ¿qué nos queda a nosotros? Nos están ustedes casi condenando a quedarnos o que nuestros hijos se queden sin esa posibilidad de poder desarrollar sus habilidades y su cerebro, alcanzar su potencialidad para que cuando estén grandes ellos puedan ir más fácilmente haciendo las cosas y tener más éxito o éxito. ¿Por qué? No entiendo eso yo.
And again, why would we put into question or doubt the opportunity for our kids to develop themselves to their maximum potential? Why put that into question?
Y yo siento que cuando muestran estas presentaciones con estas posibilidades y cuando están valorando más cuestiones que no son la educación y cuando están poniendo en riesgo el cierre de un centro, el único centro para familias de bajos recursos que hay en esta área, yo siento que eso lo que a mí me demuestra es racismo. O sea, es algo que yo me fui a meter a la página del distrito escolar de Rose Valley y lo primero que salió es que la misión mira inclusión, diversidad, respeto, potenciar a las personas. Nosotros también somos de esta área, de esta comunidad. Entonces no entendí por qué quieren cerrar ese centro si nosotras estamos aquí y esa es la única posibilidad que tenemos.
I just, again, when this is the one place where people that socioeconomically have fewer resources are able to access, again, and with all the presentations and the conversation, it just doesn't feel like a genuine effort. It feels to me like racism. And looking on the webpage and seeing the mission statement and the terms used like inclusion, diversity, respect, doesn't feel like that's coming through in this process.
A mí me gustaría poder venir a una reunión de estas en el futuro para agradecerles a ustedes que han optado por trasladar la propiedad al Children's Center y asegurarse que este centro dure 50 o 100 años más. Para nuestra gente, para toda la gente, no solo para los latinos, que ahorita somos la mayoría. Yo quiero venir aquí y agradecer eso. Por favor, hagan eso.
I'd like to come to a future meeting where the decision is to transfer the property directly to the center, and not just for Latinos. That might be a majority right now, but for everybody, I would like to see that. Please do that.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
All right. I will go ahead and bring it back to back up to the board for discussion or any reflections that you have. What we the action that we do have, the action that we do have tonight is on doing an appraisal with a not to exceed amount, and that's in our information here. We can talk about that. We think it can come in under what's here, but we do need to have some direction and for staff to be able to move forward on that so we can get that information. I've got some thoughts that have come up in terms of what's been said, but I don't know if anyone else wants to go first. No, okay. So I was taking, as I do when I'm listening to you, I take notes on everything that everybody says so I can go back and refer to them. And a couple of items that I wanted to just touch base on that I heard from a couple of people and to highlight so that people know. We did go through our points of agreement on our presentation, and it sounds like one of those points of agreement that we have come to that wasn't highlighted on a points of agreement separate slide, but it was on the slide about the 3 solutions pathways that we collectively have also agreed on in terms of a sale or transfer for the property. Has been that under any circumstance there would be a reversionary clause. So I know that was brought up in terms of the long-term future of this property. So we have discussed this, and we have talked about a couple of different reversionary provisions which were mentioned. Definitely that if the property were not to be used for the purposes of the Children's Center, then it would then also revert back to the district. So if they closed, there was a need to move, or for whatever reason it wasn't used as the Children's Center, it would revert back. And that the other reversionary clause was that if the district in the future found that it needed additional space for the district programs, that it would also revert back to the district. Knowing that we do long-range planning for our enrollment, so it would be a clause that would include lots of lead time, plenty of notification, and that would all be spelled out in the transfer agreement. So we have been talking about those as points of agreement, and we can actually add those maybe next time on a slide, just so it's clear, it's more clear. Yeah, so it's up on this slide, just so you see the bullet point about the reversionary provisions, but just so you know that is a point of agreement, we could actually pull that out and highlight it as a piece of agreement that we've all agreed on. And those reversionary clauses would stand whether we sold it directly to the Children's Center, or if we found that there was a need to sell the property or transfer the property to another public entity who would either then hold it in, either hold it like in escrow as a transfer. I don't know, we've been talking about like land trusts, and there's examples of going through a process where you transfer it to like a land trust who then transfers it to another entity, or another public entity that might hold it and then lease it or work with the Children's Center to maintain the occupancy. So we're all in agreement that the occupancy of the Children's Center remains under any transfer sale process. One other, sorry. One other piece that I've heard, and I've heard it a lot, and I really would like to work on working with the leadership of the Children's Center on this, is to lower the stress and fear that I hear from the children and families in our community. We know that we're working in good faith and really hard working together, and I'd love to work more diligently to somehow convey to our community that they don't need to be waking up in the morning in fear, that we are working together towards making sure that the Children's Center continues to exist. I don't know what it's going to take for people to go ahead and trust that we do that. But I am committed to working with the leadership of the Children's Center, to meet with you directly, to do what we can to help lower that fear and the stress of feeling like we're here to close you. And I can say it in words that we're not here to close down the Children's Center. We've said it in our meetings that we're not here to close down the Children's Center. And I will work with the leadership of the Children's Center so that the rest of the community can feel that and not wake up in the morning being afraid, go to bed at night under stress. So I'm just going to make that and work with you all to help communicate that. The other thing that I heard was this idea about needing to move faster, taking more initiative. And so I'm just going to say I heard that, and I think that we are at a place where we can put together some timelines to make some decisions, hopefully come back at our next meeting with maybe some clear mapped out timelines for decision making and the process, so that is kind of more definitive and we know where that's going and what time it's going to take. Public process does take longer than a lot of us probably want, but we will work on putting that in a way that's more definitive so everybody can really see the timeline and how that's unfolding. So those are the three things that I just wanted to reflect on, because they're pieces of information that I think we had that maybe weren't getting communicated, and some next steps. All right. Any other questions or comments about the presentation, the documents needed, or anything that you heard? And then we can also talk about the appraisal.
Hey, I kind of had just, I don't know who would answer this, I guess maybe the attorneys. I noticed on slide 8 on the presentation, I don't know if someone can get to that real quick. Yeah, sure, sorry. On slide 8 of the presentation, I just had a question. It's the areas of agreement since the last board meeting. And it lists under Naylor Act, under number 3, it requires that the property first be offered for sale to prescribed entities in that order. And I wanted to know from the attorneys, like, what does that offer involve? Is us meeting with them and saying, hey, we're looking to do this, but we want to make sure that it stays with the Children's Center? Is that all we need to do? Like, what are the requirements on that? Because I know you guys are meeting with them, but I want to make sure that we kind of, I know we're working towards a solution, but I would like to know how involved these solutions have to be and how quickly we can get them done. Because I know everyone feels like they have this hanging over their heads, and I do too. I would like to get kind of an idea of what steps we need to take to get there faster, even though I know there's a process and we have to go through it all. But I don't know that answer, so I wanted to ask about that. Same thing with the timelines on all those reports they requested, and I just don't, I mean, I'm kind of wondering when those will be coming back to us, because those are really important for me personally to be making a decision on this, I think for all of us. And I just would like to have an idea of the timelines on that, because I don't want to make a decision without knowing what I'm voting for and with a strong understanding. But I also need to know when those things are coming, because I want to not have this, you know, something that's causing stress for everybody who's involved. So those are my 2 things. One's for the attorneys and the other one is for timelines on reports.
I think I can just really quickly, because we have talked about the Naylor Act, and it's more of a process update. So we have been doing informal meetings with these entities in the Naylor Act, just to get them up to speed on the process, kind of see where they are, let them know what our preferred alternative is, so they are aware of the direction that we're all trying to move in. There is a more formal process that will have to happen, but it's later on in the process, after the 7-Eleven committee happens. So just generally speaking, First is the 7-Eleven committee, which is a review of the site, and they make a recommendation to the board to deem the property as surplus. So first the property has to be deemed surplus, and then you start the offering process. So then there will be a more formal legal process, if you will, through the Naylor Act, where those entities will be given a certain amount of timeline where they can show an interest in buying the property. And that's the more kind of legal formal process. So right now we're in an informal process of letting them know what our preferred alternative is, making sure that we understand if they have any interests, or, you know, are we going to find something? We don't want to, a lot of this where it feels really slow also is we don't want to get all the way down one road and not know what all of the potential roadblocks might be, or who might be interested, or things like that. And I don't know, Chris, if there's anything else that you want to add to that.
The only thing I was going to say is that I think, and Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, that the formal offer through the Naylor Act requires a 60-day time period as well. So they would have 60 days to respond from the time of the offer.
Thank you. And then that's another question that your answer just brought up. The 7-Eleven committee, what's the timeline on that?
We'll have a more formal process, a more formal presentation on the 7-Eleven committee, because it's there are certain kinds of meetings and it's more about what they have to review than a specific time frame. So there are certain prescriptive things that they have to review and have to report back on in terms of that. So we'll be bringing that back. Hopefully we'll bring that back maybe next meeting or so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So what I would like to see, and I'm a visual person, and I like kind of high-level visuals. What I think would be helpful for me is to have those 3 different pathways, and it might be just one slide per pathway with kind of a timeline over the next 12 months, like big, you know, kind of big items about if we are going this way, what does need to happen when. With plus or minus 1 month, it's just, you know, that I would be okay with that. But I'm not visualizing the timeline. I'm seeing kind of the list of what needs to happen, but I would like to see that in a timeline way. This way we can really see that we are making progress toward a date, not just, you know what, it's kind of, I would like to see it horizontal versus vertical, and that would be helpful for me, so that I can see that this is where we are in each of the pathways, making some sort of progress, because it seems that we are not doing much progress right now, and that's probably not true. But because I'm not part of those meetings, you know what I'm saying? I would like to see kind of it's a little bit of a project plan, right? I like to see a project plan. So hopefully that's something that can be prepared without adding much work, but maybe like organize the thoughts so that someone like me who just doesn't participate to the meeting and need to check in that we are indeed making progress, that we can click that indeed we are making progress. It seems that we were making more progress at the last meeting. At the last meeting, we had more things to discuss, more things that I think I could contribute. Today, it feels a little bit like I don't have that much to contribute, and I would like to be able to check more. You know what I'm saying? So there is something to say to that.
No, right? That makes sense, and it seems like that would also integrate with your question, and you know, you have 60. You know, first you do this, and then there's 60 days where you have to wait for that, and then you have to do this, and there's 30 days that you have to wait for that. That could go in a timeline, so you could really see, okay, how long is this going to take?
Yeah, and one per each of the pathways. This way, you know, we can reflect that, and that's okay. I think that's okay if we are getting late. But at least let's have a plan, and then if we are getting later, then okay, we are just getting late. Like in any project, we can get late. But then that would be some kind of baseline for us to check in with each other about, we thought we were going to be there and things happen and that things got later, but at least we would be able to articulate what is it that we look like we're not making progress. You know what I'm saying? So, and be able to defend that.
So we can know if we're really not making progress or we just look like we're not making progress.
Well, you know,
so, yeah.
Yeah.
Wesley, do you have anything you'd like to?
I know it can be extremely frustrating that there are serial meetings and that it seems as if the process is moving very, very slowly. Unfortunately, that's the way school boards work. It's the way government works. This has to be done correctly. I hear the frustration about how long this is taking. People are working hard. I may not feel that way to some people, but this is something that needs to be done correctly, and it's going to take time. And please be patient. I want to echo what Shelley said in terms of we've heard loud and clear the importance of the Children's Center, and that has not fallen on deaf ears. This will be a process, and it's going to take a long time, and I know that's going to feel frustrating to many people. That's the only thing I want to say.
All right. So I guess coming back next time, I know we need to talk about moving forward on one of the pieces of information that we need to gather, Rachel, as you mentioned, to be able to make decisions. One of the many pieces we need together that we can move forward on, and that we have started looking into, and I think there was in terms of an appraisal. And so we are aware that this piece of property is a very unique piece of property. It's not your straightforward commercial property, so we're not looking at getting a straightforward commercial appraisal at all, which is partially why finding an appraiser who has the skills and abilities to work with public property, to work with unique zoning on this property, to work with what we know are easements on the property. It's got an easement with MMWD. There's a lot of unique aspects to this property and that we are aware of. So we are looking for appraisal. We're looking for getting an appraisal that can fold in all of that information. We have been in conversation with some of the staff at the county to both get referrals for people that they have worked with in the past for their kinds of properties. So we're hoping that they can help us out with some referrals there. Both of our lawyers have been looking for referrals for us as well, because they are both well-versed in public entities and public properties. So they have been looking for appraisers with us as well. That's how we kind of got the price range. It's also a little bit more, because it's a little bit more difficult than a straightforward appraisal. It's also a little bit more expensive than a straightforward appraisal from a regular commercial property. So that's kind of where we're at on the appraisal process. And again, it's a baseline and it's a piece of information for us to consider going forward. It's not necessarily, I'm just going to say it's a piece of information that we need. It's not the only piece of information that we need. But we would like to know, the staff would like some direction, because the staff will be managing that appraisal process for us. And so just wanting to make sure that we're all connected in on that to move forward.
So Shelley, so we're authorizing an amount not to exceed the $17,000. So you're mentioning that you guys have not found an appraiser yet. Is that the case? Okay. So then how would you decide who it is? How would you pick one? Would both groups decide on one, or is it just us deciding since we're paying for it? How does that work? Or
we've been working to get. It'll be brought together in our working group with the appraisal, and we will. We've already been talking about the appraisal beforehand, so we'll be working through that with the Fairfax San Anselmo Children's Center on that. And we looked at lots of different ways of handling it, so we'll be in communication all the way along.
Okay, thank you.
And I know we're not discussing timeline of that, but are we talking about like 2 weeks, 2 months? So what's your take on that?
No, not 2 months.
Okay, no, just, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not quite, again, because we have actually,
You have some names.
There have been some asks out there, and organizations or consultants that have said we can't do it. We're not going to. So we're already in that. Let's find somebody to do the appraisal. So it's better not take 2 months.
Yeah, but that will, after that, they take some time for them to do the work. So hopefully, by the next meeting, there might be some update on you found the right people, and after that, they will need to do the work, which is another, that will also take a little while as well, right?
I'd cross my fingers that we could have it back to us by our
Oh,
next meeting.
okay,
I'm just, I
okay.
could be overly optimistic, but.
Okay, if even finding one appraiser seemed to be would be a good thing. You know what I'm saying? And after that, leave them the time for them to do the work. Okay, great, thank you.
Wesley, I don't know if you have anything to say on the appraisal. So we do want to go ahead and have a motion on this so that staff, feels confident that they can move forward on that. We didn't want to, as a group or as staff, just to go ahead and move forward without bringing it back here.
And it's also additional costs, so yeah. So I understand that piece as well. So I'm ready to make a motion. Are we ready? Yeah. So I'm ready to make a motion to authorize the district to obtain a sale appraisal for the Deer Park site in the amount not to exceed $17,000.
I'll second the motion.
All right. So we have a motion and a second, and we'll take a vote. Marie?
Aye.
Wesley?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
And Shelley, aye. All right. So, Chris and Marcy, hopefully that gives you what you need to move us forward as best we can to get that appraisal as soon as we can. Is there any other direction or questions that you have of us right now in terms of being able to come back? Questions you have that you might need clarification on for what you need for us to keep moving?
I don't as a staff member, but I'm wondering if the trustees have any more questions or any further information or direction that you need from the Deer Park Working Group. If you've thought of anything else to add to our items that we have, or anything else you want us to know or consider.
I'm not seeing any. And as always, if something does come up, you can always call Marcy or you can email us or call us and we'll add that into our working group meetings and keep it moving forward. All right. Well, thank you all again for being here with this item and sharing your public comments with us. We will go ahead and move forward with the appraisal and continue on with our working group meetings, and we'll be back here at our next board meeting, which is
September 13th.
September 13th for this item. All right, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and take another 3-minute break here if people need to get up and move around and leave. Thanks. All right, we are back from a short break. We've got a couple we've only got 2 audience members left here with us. And so we are going to go ahead and move forward. We switched our mics for anybody who's listening. We'll try to speak up so that our listening audience, so they can hear us. We don't have to yell. Okay, we don't have to speak up. All right. We're on to item number 3 for the presentation action item, which is a recommended approval of a 3-year contract with Panorama In Education. Do we have a presentation on this?
Yes, and Eric, Director of Student Services, is going to take this.
Oh, you know what? Hey, Eric.
Yes.
Before you get going, I just have to say, wow. Thank you so much. No, I really, really appreciate your skill, your grace, your finesse, and stepping in to do that. So I do want to acknowledge that you have stepped in to do that. It's not easy. So thank you very much.
Good teaching. Good teaching.
Yeah. I can't even do that in French, so bravo. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thank my teachers and my mother, who's a former high school French teacher. So she made me. Anyway.
That's good. Excellent.
So tonight, what I want to do is, first of all, share my real excitement at what we accomplished as a team last year to gather the voices of students, staff, and parent community through our spring surveys. And I just want to say 10 seconds that those weren't just produced out of some machine. We worked so long and hard as an administrative team with other avenues of input to create surveys that we felt would really capture in the broadest context possible the climate, the sense of connectedness, the educational experience, and the culture of acceptance and inclusion, racial awareness, and understanding. And the results were really incredible. Not by saying, oh, everybody, thinks it's all rainbows and sunshine, but that us as an administrative team, the principals, their staffs, by extension on the reflections and the engagement that we'll do with the community moving forward, we're able to talk about real thinking and feelings and experiences of all members, of all stakeholders. And that's thanks to our partnership with Panorama In Education. And we could have done a real simple kind of survey, like on Google Suite has surveys. But what Panorama has allowed us to do is capture data and disaggregate it to very granular levels, so that we can see, for example, not only by school and by grade level, but we can see by ethnicity, by race, by socioeconomic status. We can see boy, girl, or choose to identify in another manner. We can break it down to really try to capture the experiences of different groups of students. And we need help with that, and this tool, the Panorama In Education survey tool, gives us that. So what I'm asking for, again, is first of all, to share with you that what we discussed as a leadership team and what we're bringing to you tonight is a request to support us moving forward with an additional 3-year relationship with Panorama In Education. The cost is laid out. Of course, it's a bulk rate over 3 years. So it's $11,450 a year for a total cost of $34,350. But we feel very strongly that with this relationship in place, we will have a 4-year longitudinal data set that will capture the experiences of thousands of students in Ross Valley schools. Not just something for us to do and park away, but to really provide us at the district cabinet level, at the administrative team level, at the faculty level, and at the community engagement level, real information on the lived experience of our different community members. And also to the ability to, when you're asking those questions year after year, to see how we're growing or not, and to really be able to then focus our efforts. So first of all, I just wanted to ask if there are any questions about what we're proposing or about the survey tool itself or anything else related to Panorama.
Well, I would say having administered survey and being a fan of surveys in general, that it's only valuable if you have longitudinal data. And last year, data set was really quite interesting, and I had a lot of questions around that, and some, what are we doing about it, and what is going to look like next year. So I'm definitely in favor of keeping going so that we can analyze constantly the voice we heard last year. And there were some pockets of insight that were not so good news, right? And so I would like to see on those that we discussed a few, when was that, in May maybe, when we had that presentation, those slides that were, a couple of them were worries. So to make sure that we keep an eye on those and also celebrate what's good, because we had some mixed results. And I think the only way we can keep an eye on that as a trustee and you as the professional on the ground is to keep using the same tool and the same platform. So I'm in general support of using the same methodology to gather the voice of our stakeholders. So I'm as an ex-researcher and someone who think about the voice of our stakeholders and students and staff, and very seriously, I'm really in favor of that work to keep going at the same level of professionalism it was happening last year. So
I appreciate it. And I just wanted to mention too that, you know, we were doing a lot last year, if you remember where we were at last August versus now. It was kind of a little bit of a different context. And so a lot of other things happening this year after that the work to get the foundation set. We're not just thinking of, let's do a survey in April, May. We're looking to do a fall temperature check. How are things going? And that, again, is something that we're going to be working on. And thanks to our partnership with Panorama, getting those out to the student, staff, community, getting them back, analyzing them is a much more efficient process. And then also too, we will also look to gather information in ways that aren't an online survey. Focus groups, meetings, you know, site councils, different principal chats, superintendent chats. There's going to be all forms of ways of gathering input. And part of those conversations is to go back to, let's say, look at what we were saying on this question around connectedness or around engagement and learning from last May. I mean, let's kind of take a look at where we're at now. What's your experience? What's your child's experience, et cetera? So we're gonna, I think, also do the work to set up that repository of information, so that, you know, future members of our staff are going to be able to understand and see that history and captured in these surveys.
you don't.
So I think, is this one of the things that we looked at when we had one of the racial equity group meetings, and we were able to see some of the results?
Yes.
Yes.
You know what really impressed me was the fact that there was like such a high response rate. I think it was like 95% for the middle schoolers, which blew me away, because that's a huge response. I mean, even if they're given class time for it, it's just to have children who've actually provided responses that had comments in them. I was very impressed with the kids for doing it and for how it was effective enough to get them to reply. So yes, thank you for having them do it. I think having longitudinal data would be fantastic. I like having more information to make decisions and to highlight areas that need work or that we're doing particularly well. So I would definitely like to see that information again.
I was just going to say, I echo both of what they've said here, and I definitely support moving forward with it. I also really appreciate staff approach to this, because the humility and openness that it takes to want to do data and to hold that mirror up to ourselves can be a vulnerable space and can be scary. And so sometimes saying data is too complicated or saying we can't do this is a way of kind of keeping that information at bay. So I really appreciate the staff's openness to it and the kind of humility and vulnerability that it shows to continue to learn and grow and develop and be able to look at some difficult data if we have difficult data and not shy away from it. So I just wanted to say that I think this, and the way that you said you can really disaggregate this and drill down further expresses that willingness to not like hide it by just aggregating everything and making it look some way or something like that.
Well, one of the things that we know is what we want to do is make sure that what the strategies we use are effective.
Yeah.
And so we're on the right track of what we're doing. So to hear directly from our students, staff, and families is one step to helping us know if what we're doing is working. And if we need to pivot in a little bit of a different direction based on how they're feeling and experiencing our schools is helpful to help us keep our work efficient and to make sure it's adapting to what our community is telling us.
One question that I have that I don't expect to have had ironed out right now, but maybe to think about going forward, is how to use the tool in a way that can be communicated back out to the community and to parents and to non-administrators who aren't going to have access to all of the deeper levels of it, so that it can be rolled up and accessible to a lot of different community members without it being so rolled up that it doesn't really keep. So finding that sweet spot between too much detail and too much highlighting, so that it can be used for
the LCAP process, and that it can be used in the DLAC and the parent equity guardian task forces and site councils and PTAs, and maybe, take some version of it kind of on the road with our parent groups in that way.
And we did.
Which we
That's
started
been
doing.
happening,
Yeah, that's already
Principals
happening. And
have
so-
worked with site councils and
Great.
and with their site-based parent equity groups. They went over the data, and then of course with their own staff, they've
Right.
been spending time actually revisiting it
Great.
this year, and the principals made the decision based on the data to really begin the year focused on sense of belonging, because that was what was really coming up to the top. And so
Yeah.
really engaging in conversations about what that means
Yeah.
and what that looks like, and any any actions that need to be taken, and how we're going to continue to solicit feedback, not only from survey data, but through some other different modalities.
And as often as staff can reiterate, based on what we learned from the Panorama information, we've decided to, because I think lots of times decisions are made and moved on, but it's not super visible to parents or other people, that it's based on what we've learned. So it doesn't necessarily, there's all this great work and this great data, and so to continue to make it visible how it's being used by just based on the Panorama or part of it, so.
I agree 100%, and I think that, it immediately went out into, into different areas of discussion as we share it here, and I think for us the bigger work will be how to, as you said, communicate that in a really clear way to the community. You could spend hours and hours reading just one of the surveys, so how can we capture those big points so our community's seeing them? That could be something that's coming from district office. It could be something that's school by school. It's probably a mix of both too. And the last thing about surveys is they're super scary to kind of put out there. But the thing that's amazing is the more you do them, the more used to it you get. And that feedback loop, we're modeling how to be open and vulnerable, which is what we want for all of us as professionals, and also for our students to learn in their own growth and development. But then also too, the crazy thing is you also see places where you're really strong.
Yeah.
And you would never know unless you go and ask.
Yeah.
And it's human nature to focus on the pain points, but we also have the responsibility to show and reflect the good things that are happening based on years and years of people's efforts and collaboration, staff, parents, students working together. So it's very exciting, and I just again want to commend, as you did, all the staff for really committing to the process. Like you said, it wasn't like 30%, which could be like a viable sample size, but we want every voice that's represented. So that's definitely, I think, a real sign of who we are and how we want to be.
And I like the price for the value. I've seen other vendors with, not named here, but where the survey is more kind of, like you may compare with more district, but really you don't have that much depth of information getting out of it. And I think this one is a bit more intimate. You kind of get deeper. Yeah. So I think for the same money, or even a little bit less from what I have seen others, I think that we are getting more insights. Maybe less comparison with others, but I think more insight, more like it goes deeper. So I like that.
Well, on that note,
I can say that.
I'm happy to make a motion.
Oh, I can't. Public comment.
Oh, thank you. Public comment. We've got a couple of people here. Is there anybody who'd like to make a public comment on this? I don't know. Okay, no public comment. Thank you for that. When the
make a motion?
So now I'd like to make a motion. To approve the recommendation for a 3-year contract with Panorama In Education for the 2022-23, 23-24, and 24-25 school years.
And I second, happily.
All right, motion and second. So we'll vote. Shelley, aye. Marie?
Aye.
And Wesley?
Aye.
And Rachel?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much for bringing this forward, and we look forward to hearing more.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you. All right, so that is the last presentation action item. We are moving on to consent actions. And so I'm wondering if there's any board discussion, any other questions from the board, and then we can do.
Well, I just make a comment because Peggy stated on this issue that she was talking about before about item F3. It's very common to have that kind of mentorship and consultation with another person who's been a superintendent. As a matter of fact, Rick had support when he was the superintendent here. So that addresses some of your concerns about what's going on in terms of having support for our superintendent.
And cabinet.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not just the superintendent. It's to be available to all cabinet and for someone who's actually been in the district and understands it.
Yeah. And I'm also aware that we did a performance review, and if everything is going on really well, and kind of the leadership element is always helpful, and you did step into a new role in terms of superintendent. So even though you've been around a lot, know a lot, but that leadership role is an ongoing support. So, all right. Any other questions on any of the other consent items? No. All right. We can go back out to public comment because that's what we do with each of these items. So we'll go out to public comment. Any other public comment on that? Nope, seeing none. All right, we will bring it back to the board.
I'll move consent.
Wesley, I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and we'll vote. Wesley?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
Marie? Aye. And Shelley? Aye. All right, consent is moved, and we will move on to item G, board business with committee updates and reports from trustees. Should we start down at that end and go this way?
We have to switch off.
We'll start with Rachel.
Okay. So there was yes orientation, but I did not go to that because I had a schedule conflict, but it was also for people who were new to the yes board, and I've been around it in a couple various capacities. So I did not need to go to that. It was just kind of a welcome and an explanation of what the rules were and what they're doing there. And I'm assuming there's some sort of bonding exercises, I'm guessing. And then I have a Safe Routes to School meeting on Friday that I have to go to. That's all.
I don't have any specific meetings. I've been tracking. I'm a second or a sub with the legislative action group. So I've just been tracking the kind of legislative stuff that has been going through with the governor's budget and all of the other trailer bills and all of that other kind of stuff. So just keeping on top of that. And with the Marin County School Boards Association, I wasn't able to go. There's a subcommittee for the Marin County School Boards Association, which came out of the school board meeting at the beginning of the summer, where they have a subcommittee that they had created to kind of gather the information about what are the priorities for the Marin County School Boards moving forward.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to go to that meeting, but I'm on the email group with that. And so they've got a couple of priorities that they're kind of focusing on. So I'll have more to report back next time on that. But there are things like equity was a high one, collaboration among school districts was another one. TK was a third one. Those were those three priorities. Oh, and the fourth one was training for new school board members, because this year 50% of the seats are turning over in election this year, or 50% of the seats in the districts were up for election. So there was some conversations around doing some additional training for new school board members who are coming on. To understand not only kind of the procedural stuff around being a school board member, but also the idea to help school board members be able to know about all of the other districts. So you're not just focusing on your own district, but it's almost like the superintendents having conversations, but keeping the cross districts understanding. So that's what I've been committeeing on.
I have not been attending any meeting. I've been reading things, but no meetings in the last couple of weeks.
don't think so.
We have lots of reports, but none of them have to do with me as a trustee.
All right. On to approval of the regular meeting minutes for August 2nd. Does anybody have any edits? Wesley?
I'll be abstaining on both
on
item
both,
G2 and G3.
Got it. Okay. Were there any edits or changes?
I read them and I didn't have any.
Okay.
Okay, so can I make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of August 2nd, 2022?
Do you have any comments on this or no?
Oh, public comment on, no public comment. Thank you. We only have one person left.
So I made one.
I'll give you a look and see.
I made the motion.
Motion?
I will second that.
Motion and second, and it's the three of us. So Marie?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
Shelley? Aye.
Abstain.
And abstain for Wesley. And Ryan is absent.
And I'm going to keep going and make a motion to approve the special meeting minutes for August 8th, 2022.
Second.
And then a second, so we'll vote, Marie?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
Shelley? Aye. And Wesley's
Abstain.
abstaining on that one as well. All right, Board of Trustees committee assignments.
Alrighty, now we don't have Brian.
We
can-
post everything that we don't really want to do.
We'll give it to
forget
Ryan.
Let's look into that right now. Anything at 7 a.m.
This is not, again, just to remind everybody, other than the Marin County School Board Association and the
President and clerk,
president and clerk,
which is part of the annual organization
right,
meeting.
this is more of an informal.
Yeah, and so you don't even vote on these, just to take a look at the committees. And then once the election happens and the new trustees are in place, then you will revisit if you want to as a group to see if you want to change anything through the remainder of the 22-23 school year, or if any changes to the Board of Trustees, those folks, that person would like to just take over what is remaining for the remainder of the year. And then we'll revisit it in August for the entire 23-24 school year.
Does anybody have any let's just do it this way. Does anybody have any changes that they want to make to committee assignments? Because I don't have any, and we can just go with it until.
And let Ryan know.
And let Ryan know that
Keep what
he
he
just
was
keep
doing.
on, keep what he was doing.
All right.
So I think that's the direction that we are gonna go with.
All right.
Just keep those committee assignments and see, again, you do it in
Thank you.
January. Okay. And there's no public comment on that item either. Okay, we're on to superintendent and cabinet report.
Alrighty, so we are back. Every one of the members of cabinet are back from summer break, and the school year, as we all know, is underway. It's now been almost a week. Tomorrow will be a week of the new school year, how quickly it's going. And so we'll start off with Chris Carson, Chief Business Official in Maintenance Operations.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm gonna be a little long-winded this evening just because of some of the things that have been happening. First and foremost, I know we had done a report during the summer break on the termites at Manor and the multipurpose room. I wanted to let the board and public know that that work was completed with the exception of one part of it prior to the start of school. And so the multipurpose room is up and functional. And the part that is not done is simply the painting of that. So if you happen to walk onto the campus at Manor, you will notice raw wood basically on the multipurpose room, but it is in the works to be painted. We just have to wait until students aren't on campus before we can do that. So we're working to get that taken care of. So we did work with our architect on that and a structural engineer, and had an inspector of record and a local contractor that was working on the project. So, and then the next item has to do with a email we received yesterday morning at 10:15 a.m. from the Lunchmaster. And the Lunchmaster is the entity that provides meals to the school district for both breakfast and lunch. And I know that we put out a notice to the parents, so most people should be aware of this already, but they're going to be ceasing service not only to the Ross Valley School District, but to every district, including everyone that uses them in the county and probably throughout the Bay Area for 7 days. And during that time, they will be upgrading their equipment to be able to provide more capacity. They will also be working to hire more staff. And we did have some issues with delivery on the second day of school, which for us, it had to do with a new driver that actually got lost. So we were able to find them and help them to get to school.
With the food?
With the food. And the two campuses that were late were both Manor and White Hill. But there have been districts in the county that they actually received a similar letter that we received, that everybody received, canceling for 7 days. They got a, sorry, we are not going to provide you service today. And so they didn't provide meals at all those days.
Well, thank you, Chris, for driving around to look for the driver. And he did, he found him.
I wasn't going to say that, but luckily we found him. But we are working hard to provide meals for the children. I want to say thank you to our staff. We have a wonderful staff in the Business Services Division, and Jenny Wright. And the reason I'm saying that is because she drove up to Vallejo to pick up some cereal today so that we have enough cereal for the students on Thursday. And we placed orders for additional cereals and expect to receive it by Thursdays so that we will have breakfast for Friday and Monday. And we are expecting a shipment of milk and cereal from the lunchmaster. That's the only thing that they will be able to provide us, and it will be on Monday so that we can provide breakfast and also milk for the rest of that week. We also have a wonderful partnership with the Marin County Office of Education, and they have done a remarkable job in hunting down milk for us as well in the interim period between now and Monday. So we will be getting a shipment of milk from them, and also they're working to get us fruits and vegetables so that we'll have to go pick up these items from them, but we will have fruits and vegetables that are sliced up for our students. And they're also providing us 3 lunch meals. The first will be Friday, and then we have some next week as well. And so the district is also working, and we're in process to get meals for Thursday and the other days remaining that are not covered next week. And so it's been a team effort, and I know that there's also, we do have a board member that's also impacted on, and the district she happens
Also
to
trying
work.
to find some carrots and apples.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I will say that we had a meeting with the County Office of Education, and they've been very helpful.
Super helpful.
And I do also want to give one additional thank you to a community member and entity in the Ross Valley School District, and that has to do with the Safeway at Red Hill. I went in today to talk to the manager, and I have his business card here, and his name is Rick Jimenez, and Mr. Jimenez has offered to allow us to store the milk that we received on Monday. We can only put so much of it there, but we hope to have plenty of other storage for the milk that we get. And it's because of community members like that. And also we're receiving parents that are reaching out, offering support in any way they can. It just shows the wonderful community here in the Ross Valley School District. And so I just wanted to reach out and share that with you this evening. And I'm sorry for being so long-winded.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
All right, Julia.
All right. Somewhere in that whole lunch problem
Drama.
is some really beautiful mathematics and problem solving, which is how we started.
Oh, here we go. Always about math.
I was so excited for Certificated Professional Development Day this year. At the elementary level, we invited in Fawn Nguyen. And Fawn is a internationally known math educator. She's really quite extraordinary. She's spent many, many years as a teacher, but also a coach in her district, and has now been hired by Amplify, which is a kind of a massive publisher, running their math PD and projects. And she's just extraordinary. And is also a second language learner, which helps, have her bring a really interesting perspective. And last year, and here's Karen in the room, and I think we talked about this last year, that the middle school started working with Fawn. And our middle school teachers came back a day early so that they could spend another day with Fawn at MCOE, the day before our first contracted day of work. And then because I knew Fawn was going to be in town, I nabbed her, and she worked with our elementary teachers and worked with them on really visiting what good mathematics instruction looks like. She always begins with math is joyful, and math is beautiful, and math is problem solving, and that math is a gift. And every problem that she gives us to solve is a gift that she's giving us. And our teachers had a lot of fun solving problems. It was great because we all came away with a stack of problems to solve. And then the very first day of school, I got put in an 8th grade classroom with nothing to do. And I went, oh, we're going to solve wolves and sheep. And so I had a lot of fun doing that. So our elementary teachers spent the morning with Fawn, and then in the afternoon spent time with principals leading conversations about implementation. And then we kept Fawn for that afternoon, and our middle school teachers math department got additional time with Fawn then. And then our middle school teachers in the morning spent time with Mary-Clare Neal and John Baker, the new principals of White Hill, really kind of getting acquainted, building relationship, checking in and learning, talking about what they love about White Hill, and what they want to keep going, what they want to keep growing, some visioning work, and then also some conversation around culturally responsive pedagogy. I know that John and Mary-Clare have both read and really appreciate Zaretta Hammond's work on culturally responsive teaching in the brain, and they're bringing some of those components to staff right now. And so it was really just a fantastic day. And then the following week, the day before the first day of school, is our classified PD day. And during the morning, we had CPR and first aid training for PE specialists, and campus supervisors, AAs did that training.
They did it earlier.
Principals.
They did it earlier in August.
Yes, earlier in August. And then after that, we had an equity training for classified staff. And all classified staff was invited to the training with Deborah McKnight. And she talked about a lot of the things that she's been talking with our administrative team, talking with our teachers about, and just kind of opened the space for all of the perspectives that exist within our classified workforce to come into the room. And it was a really interesting and just fabulous experience. And I think we all left it feeling like we've got to do more with our classified employees. There was a lot of appreciation for being able to take part in that particular training.
And if I can add too, that what also was helpful with what Deborah did is when the groups, we were seated in fours, and so we had partner conversations, and part of the closing activity was, what can we each take away, and what can each classified employee take away to be able to implement on the first day of school? And so that could range from learning students' names, being sure to pay attention to students who may be sitting alone at lunch and recess, noticing if, as their instructional aides, what support might they need in the classroom, those kinds of things. So to really just stay focused on the kids in whatever the capacity is, as building manager, custodian, campus supervisor, instructional aide, one-to-one aide, all the positions were there. And so it was I think the feedback on the survey was overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah, and with this recognition that sometimes it's our classified employees that have the closest relationship with kids and are really that first person that's gonna notice when something's going on. And so incredibly important. And then another happening is last week we submitted a proposal to the anti-bias grant program that's been put out by the CDE, like by the skin of our teeth. And so this is a program, they're offering $75,000 to $200,000 grants. Who knows? We won't know until November if we're awarded a grant, but the grant proposal is around two areas. So the bigger area is around site-based coaching and really providing our principals and our sites with kind of on-the-ground coaching and support with looking at systems within each of our sites, understanding how unique each one of our sites is. And then the other part of the grant is putting together a team of teachers to lead a history social science initiative similar to the equity book bundles, but bringing them together to create units of study that bring in multiple perspectives and really, elevate the counter narrative and are aligned with the California framework that has these very rich inquiry questions. We've tried to find a history social science curriculum that feels right at our elementary level and have had a difficult time finding something that meets the equity lens that we've been working on developing. And
just Julia, thank you so much, because the big endeavors that took and the time and the thinking and the care and consideration. I know it was very time consuming to write the grant, and you did the heavy bulk of that all by yourself. And it turned out, it looks fabulous. I can't imagine we will not receive an award.
Well, we shall see.
Yes.
Fingers crossed for sure.
Mr. Carson is counting on the money to come. Bring the money. Bring the money, Julia. It's exciting. It's very exciting. Regardless of whether we get it.
Yes,
awesome. And it's great thinking, and it will be used, and we'll pitch it someplace else or use it some way. So thank you.
And the visioning around the projects, those are projects we want to do no matter what. And so in some capacity we will move forward, but hopefully with some lovely grant money. And then just reminding that last year at the end of the year at our final parent guardian equity task force meeting, there was time for the parents to give feedback on our racial equity action plan. And so our administrative team has now completed the process of looking at all of the feedback and incorporating it into this year's plan, which includes a few new actions and some refinement of some of the other actions. And now the next step is for principals to take the revised read to their staff for more feedback. We'll do a little more refinement, and then we're now confident that we'll be ready to share it at our first Parent Guardian Equity Task Force meeting of the year. So that's some good work done there by the team as well. Eric and I had a meeting this morning with our MTSS team, including our intervention teachers, our EL teachers, and our MTSS partner coaches. It was just a great meeting to talk about capacity building and alignment across the district, talking about which assessments we're going to be using, what the benchmarks within those assessments are that indicate that students may need intervention, what that process looks like, instructional materials, and everyone left there saying, can we meet again next week? So we're setting up additional meetings and just moving forward with really taking all of the work that Eric led last year around our MTSS and putting it into action. And then the 2022 CASP scores are not yet open to the public, but there's in-district release. And if I'm reading it correctly, it's okay to report some to the board. And so just our LCAP goal is that we want to return to or exceed pre-pandemic scores on our CASP. And we're on our way. So our scores have increased over the last year. In English language arts, 75% of our students met or exceeded the standard. And I think we really need to feel pretty great about that. That's a lot of hard work on the part of our teachers. And that's an increase of 4 points over the previous year and just 3 points away from pre-pandemic levels. So that's pretty darn close. And then in mathematics, 65% of our students met or exceeded standards. We increased 3 points over last year, and we are 4 points away from pre-pandemic. So I'm feeling really good about that, and just really kudos to our teachers for all of the work that they did. I think the final thing I'd love to just say, it's been so wonderful to be on all of the campuses and see our schools back in action. For me, what I feel like I'm seeing is what I was hoping I was going to see last year, when I thought we were going to have that feeling that we're back. And in my mind, it turned out that teachers had to do tremendous work last year, not only on the academics, but really more so on acquainting students with what it means to be in school. And their work has paid off. And all of our staff, our classified staff, our administrators have worked so hard. And it just feels really joyful on our campuses. And I'm so happy to see it.
And even just to echo that with TK and K for some of the kids who haven't been in school yet, and to see that the teachers through the first couple of days of being on campuses have been able to really set those routines. And I think this, as Julia said, it does feel like we are back. And it feels so much better than the last 2 years, I'll say that, start of school year. Yeah. All right. Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, great. And Eric Sable, Director of Student Services.
Yeah, thank you. Let's see. First of all, just going out day 1, 2, 3, just the energy on campus I was here to start last Tuesday, but across the board, just truly electric. I mean, it's been a lot of campuses on a lot of day 1s, and it was just really special. And to see the community coming together, and we're not starting the year with like 6 feet apart, and the whole signage, and just all the many reminders of what we've had to navigate over the last 2 years. It was just incredibly special. I hope everybody here and the extended district team and community feel really proud of that. It was really amazing. And you only get one start, right? You only get one time to start. And it was just special to witness that. And I agree with what Marcy said, we're back, and that means things are more complicated than ever, because we obviously much work to lay the groundwork over the summer. And I mean, I just tip my hat to my colleagues here for all the work, behind the scenes, and just really contending with big issues and efforts. Anyway, some cool things that are going on for us on the student services side of things. We of course had a really successful extended school year program for our children in special education. That was over 4 weeks right after school got out. And I just want to extend my thanks to those staff members, many in-district staff, and then also some that we contracted from outside district to provide instruction, to provide speech, OT, physical therapy, counseling services, incredibly special. And it says a lot about our district that, we get the majority of our ESY staff from in-house, when people, of course, deserve to, be on a beach somewhere. So that was really great. let's see, we also too partnered with Marin County Office of Education. They saw a need countywide for more referrals in early intervention. And so thanks to the great work with Principal Minicozy at Manor and Mr. Carson and his facilities department, we opened up we partnered with MCOE so that they could open up a new early intervention classroom on the Manor campus. So that's our second MCOE regional classroom on the Manor campus and third in the district. Our district obligation, based on the students that are served in MCOE programs, is just one classroom, but again, it's a testament to the district, to the staff, to those principals that they really, even if the children are from other districts or around the county, we're one team to provide that support for children that have a higher level of need. And so that was really special. And, you know, the MCOE staff and their special ed staff, true colleagues, true partners, they really do have that sense of ownership of all the kids across the county. And so I'm grateful for that partnership. We also opened up our early intervention speech classroom up at the Hidden Valley campus, which was really exciting. For a long time, that program had been located at Brookside, which was a fabulous location. But Brookside also houses two of our district SDC classes. And we felt really strongly as a team that we want to make sure that our programs are distributed in a way to where those different school teams can have the proper bandwidth to be able to support them. And it was a lot to ask for Brookside to be able to support 3 separate classrooms with one principal and one administrative assistant and one set of teachers. So that's really exciting, and children will start coming for their speech sessions in early September. And then lastly too, the tobacco prevention grant from the state. We were recipients of a 3-year grant. Because so many of the funds were not able to be spent due to the pandemic, they extended it to a year 4. They approved our proposal for year 4, so that'll be just under $154,000 for this year. That goes towards mental health staffing and also professional development, conferences, other services, including translation. Not only is it geared towards tobacco and prevention, drug prevention, but also the real focus is priority populations, students of color, underserved communities, etc., students that are more vulnerable, more at risk. So what are we doing to help build a campus climate, a district climate where people feel safe, supported? And again, that's getting back to the survey conversation, the feedback we're looking for. So extremely excited about having those additional resources to support all that good work. And I think that'll be it for now from Student Services.
Thank you.
Until next time.
And Eric, I want to reiterate too what Shelley said about thanking you tonight for your interpretation services. I was watching you and how is he actually doing this in real time? So amazing, thank you. And really appreciate it. And we'll talk later just to be sure that this is sustainable for you as we go forward for the board meetings. And if I can just add, I think the reports have been comprehensive, and I really appreciate what has been shared this evening about the start of school. And we know that every school year to get started is a heavy lift. Every single one of our positions in our school district is critically important to the functioning. And there are so many moving parts and so many things that we take for granted that are just going to occur and they're going to happen. And there are hiccups and there are bumps in the road, but that every staff member can rise up and help support and see that where the need is, they will fill in. And we just do have an amazing staff. It allows our teachers to teach. They're taking care of the kids each and every day. And also our ancillary services with counseling, school psychology, to help support the efforts of the students to make sure that they come into the classroom. The administrative assistants at each school, that's a heavy lift to get the school up and running, the last minute registrations. Every position is critical, and we have a lot of them open still on our classified employment, which means that our teachers are helping when they're, if they're able to go out and do campus supervision. So that would be their typical break time, their normal break time, and they're out helping. There are folks who are having to serve food because we have a food service worker position at 3 of our 5 sites, and we've added the breakfast. And so we're gauging how many minutes it actually takes to serve the breakfast. We'll need to get into the swing of things to know really what additional time we need to add to food service worker position. And we have STC position at Brookside open, 3 through 5. And really thankful to Sarah Hom, the younger grades, TK through 2, to take on the 3 through 5-year-olds. And then Jenny Burt, also resource teacher, she's taken a couple of the kids too and added them to provide their services to them. So we're trying to get really creative with whether it's persons who are in credential programs, pre-interns, contracted folks who might be able to come in to fill that. We also have, as you might know, TKK combination classes at 2 of our schools. And because of the way that the last minute registrations came in, at least at one of the schools, they're over capacity. And the teachers wanted to keep the kids at the school as opposed to have them be overflowed to another school in the district. And so as it's turned out, not all of them did come, but they are a little bit over capacity. And the teachers, when they are the TKK combination classes, they really love to share the kids between the 2 of them so they can plan together and also be able to, because it helps when there's only one person in the grade level, it's really helpful to have a colleague. So they do like to partner at the schools. Our enrollment overall came in higher than what Chris was projecting for budgeting purposes. And as you probably remember, Chris has his way of doing projections for enrollment. I have my way. And it is fascinating how even when Midge was here as our business manager, how closely aligned we were coming at it from different operational procedural mechanisms. But we still came in higher than what we anticipated. So in terms of what this drop is in California, at least as of right now, our drop that we did experience in enrollment, we're recovering some of the students. And it also is helpful, especially because we're not in community funded status right now. And so every additional student does help to bring revenue into the district. So it is really helpful. And again, we have library specialists. There's a lot of open positions. And so we're really hopeful that as our principals who've done an amazing job doing outreach to their community members and asking them if they know anybody, they've been able to fill a lot of their own positions, but we do still have, and I'm going to say critical positions because all of our positions are critical. We wouldn't have them otherwise. But they're all necessary and critical to the well-running and functioning of our schools and to support all of our kids. Marie, did you have that?
No.
Okay. And then the last thing I want to say is we do have, and unfortunately COVID is still with us, and we did have a couple of kids who missed the first day of school, unfortunately, and a couple more who've been out. We have had some classroom-based transmissions, which we were very fortunate in the years past to not know so clearly that they were actually transmitted on the campus, but these definitely have been. And so we're hopeful that folks are really monitoring themselves, staff, any of our parent volunteers and our students before they come to school so that if they are feeling ill, they stay home. And we know it's tough to miss school, to miss work, but it's many more days to be out and many more days of other folks to miss school or work as well. So we'll keep that, and thankful to Donna Faulkner for again returning as our COVID response coordinator. So a lot of wonderful support, and we are a lean machine at the district office. And so to have the folks who step in and to support all of our work and just the amazing work that everybody in this district does. It's very fortunate to be in Ross Valley, great school district. I'm so thankful to be here and to have such an amazing team from the school sites all the way to the district office.
Take that. Wow. It's great to be back and hear all of you again. I didn't realize how much I had missed it over the summer until we had those updates. So I just appreciate all the work that you do and that you share it with us with such passion and clarity, and it really, I think, helps us stay grounded in our roles and to be supportive of it. So thank you. It was great to be back and to hear the enthusiasm and hear from you guys. So thank you.
And one more thank you to add is just for Sean, Jorge, Teresa, Chris, for ensuring that as we've needed to move venues. It's a lot more work to set up this space than our district office space. Our technology needs are much greater, and the setup and also the day staff here at Wade Thomas to help ensure that our seating is arranged. And everything is just a group effort and a heavy lift. And really thank you all for making it. All of our materials, equipment gets transported back and forth.
Down to the details, I might add, for those who are listening, of tape on you guys do a phenomenal job of paying attention to everything and all of the details and just knowing that it's taken care of. I was just looking at the tape down here, I'm like, you guys have it down, so thank you.
I'm noticing Sharon has a new toy over there, like a new computer. So I think this is a dream becoming reality for you over there, right? Okay, sound engineer.
The concerts after this.
Okay, I see. Okay, if we don't know what to do.
Something.
And Karen's here to sing.
Okay, good.
Be careful now. What did she say? We won't make you sing this time.
Oh,
I see now that we do know that, we might have you make a 3-minute public comment in opera. Look at these guys with the soundboard over here. Wow.
She doesn't need any equipment.
Oh, all right. Thank you all the way around. And just looking forward to continuing to hear more as this will unfold from all of you. So appreciate that. All right, we can now move into our last little bit here in terms of meeting review, future board topics, board direction, and any meeting debrief. If there is any staff direction that dawns on you that we didn't give you moving forward, we've got notes, and I think we're pretty good about doing the recap at the end of every item to figure out what we need moving forward. So we will come back for each item that's coming, for the item that is coming back on that. Is there anything else with respect to debrief besides acknowledging how awesome this room setup is and all the work that goes into it?
For all the equipment for translation.
And the translation.
Obviously to Eric for translating for us, but
having the equipment. Did that work okay? Is there anything else that we would need from both of your perspectives that we might need to adjust going forward with either handing out equipment or?
Well, so what was interesting, when I went to the Archie Williams, there's a 9th grade parent orientation thing that I attended, and they had a similar setup here, but they had someone at a table at the back giving out those as they came in, so people could see them right away, so they didn't have to come up, or we didn't have to go and pass them out. They could just come in, and there's a sign that said translation here, but they had somebody sitting there with them, they handing them out, so they were all gone.
Okay.
So just a thought.
And then the only other thing I can think of in terms of just keeping us moving so we get out on time, I know we've been taking a break after that agenda item where people then leave, but I will work on trying to maybe move that along so the break is shorter, so we can just
run to the restroom, and then keep moving on, because I know that's gotten a little bit longer than I think maybe we need to have moving forward.
It's hard to get back to the part two.
Yeah.
It's tiring.
Yeah, and I don't want to shoo everybody out of the room.
No, I know, but
I also want to make sure that we don't take a whole long time, both for us and for anybody who might be listening, because they're not necessarily going to know when to come back to. So I'll work on that next time. All right, and with that, it is 9:48, and I will adjourn the meeting.